Hi everyone, well this video is going to be a making of my S.O.S cover, so if you haven't seen the cover yet, go watch it, otherwise this video will make no sense. I'm going to split this video up into three parts. Part 1 is going to be talking about the instrumentation and the recording process of the instruments in the band. Part 2 is going to be about the translation decisions, putting it into English. And then part 3 will be about the actual performance of the vocals and the technique and that kind of thing and how I did that. So the timestamps will be in the description. Let's get started. I'm going to have to apologize. I'm going to have to use the webcam audio while I'm speaking so that I can play the kind of studio recording through the sound card. There probably is a workaround, but it'd be a bit of effort, so I'll just do it this way. So I'll go through a few of the instruments, and so I use Pro Tools for my recording. You can see that there's lots of kind of tracks here. There's all kinds of things. Obviously, when you've got a full band, you've got guitars, you've got vocals, you can see all here. You've then got bass, you've got your drums here, and then you've got some effects channels and some synthesizers, and of course a master bus, which is over here. This basically is just all the tracks. So why don't we look at some of the instruments? What I wanted for this song was it to be guitar based. I wanted it to be different from the original, but I really liked Damash's arrangement and song structure particularly. I loved the way he built it up and brought it down. So I decided not really to change the overall song structure, but I did want to change the instrumentation. So let's listen from the beginning. So I've got the vocals muted at the moment. Now I'm playing my electric guitar finger picked, and I've also got this synthesizer underneath. So do you hear that? Just a droning sound. It just adds a bit of breath around the track. A little bit of eeriness there. Then you put the guitar on top of that. I just wanted it to have that kind of different feel, and as the song goes on, you'll hear that I add a little bit kind of more dynamics, which means more kind of range to the instruments. And so if we go later on into the song, I've actually added some distortion on this part to give it that real drive on the guitars. So I really like the guitar. I've got a really interesting sound as well. I've got this ambient guitar track. Do you hear that? It's got lots of reverb. I really love that little line there. I was just improvising and I thought it sounded good, so I kept it. If you add in the other guitar, it gives it that really cool feel. So that's the guitars. For the drums, I had to go electronic. I actually do play the drums, but anyone who plays drums or who's recorded before will know that drums are very difficult to record and take a lot of time. And my philosophy with recording this song is I didn't want it to take too long. I didn't want to take too many takes with the guitar or make it bigger than Ben-Hur and for it to take a long period of time. I'd only just heard the song for the first time a week before I started recording it, and I hadn't listened to it that many times, so I was a little bit rushed, but I decided to go for simplicity, so I used some electronic kits and then samples, and I literally just played the notes with my fingers on a keyboard. Again, it would have been, I play the drums, it would have been much quicker and easier to actually play a kit and just do it in one take or a few takes. The playing would have been quicker, but the setup would have been a lot longer. So this worked really well. So we've got the bass guitar here. which is just a standard bass sound, and we'll put the drums in with it. So you can hear that it's just a pretty standard kit sound with a bit of an electronic snare sound, just to make it a bit more interesting. I'm using DrumLab, which is a pretty good program on Pro Tools. So again, this all takes time. I had to listen to the original, I had to listen to the drummer, and then with my fingers play it on the electronic stuff. But I think the end result was pretty good. I added some reverb, some compression to make it sound nice and natural. And finally, a little touch I did with this song is I added some strings that come in on the second chorus. So let's try to find that. If I go over, here we go. So this is where the drums come in. Da, 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 da. You got these strings that come in. But it just comes in on the second chorus to add a lift to the song. Again, I'm just playing this on keyboard, pretty simple little line. So with my overall choice of instrumentation, it really was a case of I wanted the overall feel and song structure to be like Damash's, but I wanted it to be fundamentally more me, which was guitar-based, a bit of grit to it, particularly in the end there, and strings. It's less keyboard-dominated than Damash's version, and more guitar-dominated, and it does have a different sound to it, which many people have commented on. Now, I will talk about the translation very quickly before we listen to the vocals and how I did that. Now, with the translation, I had this tricky thing of the original is part of a musical called Starmania, and there's themes in Starmania that have to do with the actual musical, and it tells a story within that musical. It also then has these themes of life and death and these metaphors that are kind of, yes, within the broader musical, but also are a universal kind of theme that runs throughout that song. And then also it's done in French, so it's got its own language, it's got its own kind of quirky use of metaphor that only comes through in the French language. Now for me, when I wanted to put it to English, I had to make the decision, do I want to keep all that nuance? Do I want to keep it translated in a way that's direct? The advantages of that would have been, it would have been very similar to the original and it would have been quite direct. The disadvantages are quite a few. Firstly, it would have sounded really clunky, like with the phrasing of the words and the metaphors, some of them wouldn't have made sense. Secondly, people who aren't familiar with Starmania, which would be a lot of people, would be utterly confused by what the lyrics are about in certain points. Some of it would make a lot of sense, and then some of it would be like, wait, what? And so when I was translating this song, I decided to make the choice that I'm going to universalize the themes. What do I mean by that? I'm going to take out the specific Starmania references and universalize it to be about a human thinking about these themes in their life. Now, as a result of that, yes, some of the translations aren't completely direct. As well as that, I wanted it to follow a narrative pathway where it started in one place and ended in another. The original to and fro's between feelings of hope and feelings of loss and grief and doubt, it to and fro's the whole time. And that's embedded within this musical Starmania and in that broader sense. What I wanted to do was keep the underlying themes of questioning life and significance and all those things, and keep a lot of the imagery and metaphors, be as direct as I could be, but then I actually wanted to take the listener on a journey, wherever they're from, with no prior knowledge. I wanted them to be able to listen to this song, understand what it's about, and go on a journey from beginning to end, a journey that starts with doubt and ends with rest and ends with a higher perspective. So that's what I chose to do with the song. I kept it as direct as I could in certain places, and other places I had to depart from that. And what I found was that a lot of the metaphors I could actually work in if I used that framework, and it actually made a lot of sense. So I hope you forgive me for the licenses I did take with the translation of the song, and I hope it means that a broader bunch of people can now connect with this song. And I have tried to stay very true to the themes that are in the original, and a lot of the metaphors, the looking down from above metaphors, the being beneath the weight of your own mortality, but then switching upside down and looking at it from a different perspective. I tried to keep all that from the original as much as I could. And then it got to the vocal performance. How was I going to actually sing this? Well, let's get back to our Pro Tools session, which has just been kind of sitting here in the background. You know, I didn't want this to be an over-polished cover. I've done recording before, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I could have spent a lot of time making this song sound absolutely perfect from my perspective, as good as I could do it, right? I decided not to do that because I wanted it to be more authentic and a showcase of how I sound like when I sing generally, and a reflection of what I can do live. And so what I decided to do then was I decided to take 3 takes, start to finish. I sung the song 3 times through, and then pick the best bits and put that into the final version. I didn't take any more than 3 takes. So here, if I scroll up, you can see Vox 1, Vox 2, Vox 3. These are my 3 recording takes, just there in the middle here. And then what I've also done is lead keepers. So what I did was I then selected the parts that were best and bounced it down into one track from start to end. So if I solo this, I've also got to solo the effects channel. You'll hear what is in the final version. Should I laugh? Should I cry? Now, effects-wise, what I've got on this is actually pretty simple. Again, I didn't want it to be over slick, so what I did was, where are we? Vox effects. So that's a reverb. I don't even actually have that much reverb on it. It's quite dry for an operatic style song. Dry means not too many effects. But I've got 2 different delays, a very short delay and a bit of a longer delay. A delay is that echoey sound. Will I live? Will I die? Now the only other processing I've got is just EQ, which is pretty flat. EQ just is the stuff that like highs, lows, the balance of the actual tone, and compression, which is about volume, and then a de-esser, which stops the noises being too loud, right? So very, very basic effects, and I didn't take too long tweaking them all. I kind of chucked them on there, used my ears, sounded okay, good enough. Yeah, so let's listen through that. Let's listen to a few sections raw. All of my time on this earth, it's ever more beautiful, looking from above. So let's listen to this part. All of my time on the Yeah, I mean, that was pretty good. I kind of wish that I hit one of the notes with a little bit more chest resonance. I think it was this one. Oh no, it's this one. Now, like, that's quite powerful, but I wish it was just a little bit beefier in the low end, but you know, again, I could have taken a few more attempts and got it perfect, but that would not be true to my philosophy that I was going for. Let's listen to some of the other versions and see how they sound. Okay, so the first line. A time on the earth. So that take was pretty similar to the final one. Listen to this one. All of my time on the earth. A little bit pitchy on the first one there. The rest was all right. So I think that's the final one that I ended up keeping. Also, earlier on in the song, I decided to do a lot of those things were just improvised in the middle of the song. Let's see if I can find what I'm talking about. Okay, let's listen to this together. Whoops, now they're all on. That sounded hilarious. Okay, one at a time. Let's see what this sounds like. Okay, so that ended up in the final recording. That was just me improvising. That sounded pretty bad, so that's why I didn't keep it. So again, I improvised a lot of the stuff that ended up in the final version. So let's listen to this. There's that note where it goes, where Dimash sings from above, and he goes really high, and he actually does a really high flageolet up to some crazy high note who even knows how high it is. But instead, so I just improvised something when I got to that part. Yeah. So that's a full voice just belt, and I just held that single note. That sounded pretty good. I probably could have kept that one, but I decided to do this one instead. Let's listen to it. I think I just like the fact that I started off in a full mixed voice, and I actually relaxed my vocal cords back into like a head voice and then back into a falsetto, which I thought was a pretty cool little thing that was a bit different to the original, so I ended up keeping that. But again, it's just interesting that when you're improvising and you're just going with the flow, what comes out. I didn't have any of those notes planned out. It just seemed like a good idea at the time. So yeah, so I really like the end product. I kind of listened to this song and this cover, and I go, oh, I probably could have sung it better, to be honest. And I do believe that. But it's an accurate representation of probably what you get if I were to sing it live. It'd be somewhat similar to that. And so, yeah, I hope to actually perform it live, like in front of people at a place one day, and if I do, I'll make sure to record it and chuck it up on my channel. But as well as that, I'll probably do a live in the studio version, like a single shot. I'll use this backing track because I've already built it. I might as well utilize it, and I'll get a handheld mic actually, just to make it a bit different, and I'll just sing it start to finish one take, and who knows, I might improvise a bit in that as well. Anyway, I hope that gives you a bit of an insight into my S.O.S cover. Again, my whole philosophy was, let's make a different version. The original versions will always be there. The original songwriters, the Starmania version, Dimash's version, nothing will ever take away from the fact that they exist and you can listen to it. This is just a tribute to that. It's an English version. If you liked it, awesome. If you didn't, that's okay, because those versions still exist, so you can enjoy them, and then other people will hopefully enjoy my version. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you haven't subscribed, do it. You might as well. You've watched this whole video. So thanks, guys. We'll see you in the next video.